I'm Beth, and I'm going to be hosting the Apothecary Bag Sew-Along from Sincerely Jen Patterns. This sew-along is going to take place in the Sincerely Jen Facebook group. It is going to last for 4 weeks. This video is week 1, which is going to be the cutting and interfacing. I'm going to walk you through the steps, and let's go ahead and get started. For the interfacing and cutting video, the first thing we'll need to do is you will need to buy the pattern. You will be able to watch this video without the pattern, but you will not be able to make the bag unless you have the pattern so you can get the pattern pieces. So step 1 will be buy the pattern. Step 2, in my opinion, is to print out page 2 and 3. Page 2 and 3 is a great first step because it has a lot of valuable information and it helps you to move forward with which pattern pieces you need to print and your cutting instructions. So on the top of page 2, it tells us that we need to open the pattern using Adobe Acrobat Reader and we need to print it at 100%. Our next thing we need to do is we need to decide if we're going to be sewing the large or small apothecary bag. There's not a big difference between the two, so you'll just need to decide which works best for you. And then it tells us exactly which pages we need to print for the size we've chosen. You don't want to print all the pages out. You will get confused and it's just a waste of ink. So make sure you look at which pages you print for the pattern you choose. Make sure you test your 1-inch square, and then you will need to tape the pieces together to fully form all your pattern pieces. The next thing I want you to note is that if you're choosing the large, it will be denoted differently. It will have the measurements in parentheses in a red font. The small will just be the regular black font. Okay, so that is some basic instructions on how we're going to get started. The next thing we need to do is we need to choose our materials. Jenny has us listed that we are going to use 1 exterior, 1 contrast, and 1 lining. 3 separate materials. You could choose to do all of this the same if you wanted to, or you could choose to even do different ones. I will go ahead and tell you that I'm using 1 extra exterior, so I actually have 3 exterior materials for mine, but that is just a personal preference. I'm choosing to use quilting cotton for all of mine, but you do have the option of using vinyl or cork. You'll need to decide that up front because it will make a difference into what all you need to cut out. Since I'm using quilting cotton, I have to interface every single piece with a fusible woven interfacing. Every single piece. If you use vinyl or cork, you do not have to do that, which she lets you know right here in this box that you will not use that fusible woven interfacing. You will just use some of the firm interfacing there on the bottom. That is our material choice. The next thing I want to point out on this page 2 is that Jenny gives us a key right here. In this pattern, you're going to see pictures, illustrations, I guess I should say instead of pictures, of the construction of the bag. She gives us a key here to let us know what we are looking at. Please pay attention to this because it will help you so much. It is so clear what we're going to be working with if you know this key. So for example, if you see this white with light gray polka dots, you know she's referring to the lining in the illustration. Now we're ready to move on to our cutting and getting everything ready. This part can be a little tricky, so I want to take the time to go over this slowly. If you already understand all this, of course, you can skip over it. On the bottom of page 2 and the top of page 3, this is going to be our master cutting list. This is why I like to print out these pages. You can check off or mark every single piece you cut to make sure you have everything you need to get started with the bag. She tells us here that we have an exterior fabric, a contrast fabric, our lining, then our woven interfacing, and then on the bottom here we have a Decaville light and a Decaville heavy. Everything's broken down easily to understand, but what I got confused with is like when it would say, oh, we need to cut out 2 pocket panel C. I'd be like, okay, where does that go on my bag to kind of help me decide what I wanted to use. If you're following everything with her and you're just using an exterior fabric, your contrast fabric, and your lining, it's a little bit easier. Where I wanted to throw in an extra material, it made it a little bit trickier. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you these pieces and run down them kind of quickly to kind of help you understand and orientate how you want your bag to look. And that way it'll help you with choosing what materials you want to use. So let's get started with that. I'm going to put this to the side. I want to point out that whenever you print out your pattern pieces, you will see a cutting chart. This is kind of like a cheat sheet. This is not separate from your master cutting list. It's not like you have to cut out everything on the master list and this. This is just a repeat of what's in your master list. So be sure that you don't double cut anything. And I want to show you a couple pattern pieces that were a little, not tricky, just needed a little bit extra attention drawn to them. Our side panel. We are cutting this with our exterior contrast, and it says we're cutting 2 regular and then 2 mirrored. The best way to do this is just like she says. Cut 2 pieces with your pattern piece face up, and then 2 pieces with your pattern piece face down. Make sure that you keep your fabric oriented the same way on both. Whether you cut from the wrong side or the right side of your material, just make sure you're consistent so you can get your mirrored pieces easily. Another thing I wanted to point out is this piece right here. This is actually 3 pattern pieces in one. The first thing I suggest you do is use this full pattern piece, cut on the fold, and you're going to cut out your back pocket panel. You'll cut 1 exterior, 2 lining, and 3 woven interfacings using the full pattern piece. Then you can choose to either fold on your dashed line or even cut it off if you want. Then you're going to use this piece to cut out your panel lining B. That's 2 lining pieces with your interfacing. After you do that, then you can either fold back this section or cut it off, and you're going to use pocket panel A, again on the fold, for your 1 exterior, 2 lining, and get those pieces. Really neat way to save on some printing and get everything all you need on there on that. Okay, set that aside. Let's start with some of our pieces. This is our bottom panel. We need 1 lining that I'm just interfacing with my woven. And then we need 1 exterior. This I'm using my contrast. On this one we do have our woven, but we also add an additional Decaville light, and we use a separate pattern piece to cut out our Decaville heavy. This is just to give more firmness and stability. I will tell you that I'm going to go, even though I fused this on and it's solid, I'm going to go ahead and use a black thread and stitch all along the perimeter of my Decaville heavy, just because I have had times in the past when I'm birthing the bag that this will kind of come in here a little and it just bothers me. So I do that and it doesn't show up, it doesn't distract any from the bag. So I will do that again on this one. That is your 2 bottom panels you need. Next we're going to move on to the lining for the inside of the bag. You're going to cut out 2 zipper linings, just some basic squares there. You cut this out with your ruler. There's not a pattern piece for this. You're going to go ahead and interface this with a medium weight woven interfacing, just like the pattern says. And then we also have our lining main. We cut out 2 linings, 2 fusible woven interfacings, but we also cut out 2 Decaville lights. And I want to point out that one of your Decaville lights, you will need to cut out this box on your Decaville light interfacing. That's whenever you fuse it onto the lining piece, you'll be able to install your zipper pocket easier. You won't have that extra bulk whenever you're installing your zipper pocket. Okay, there is that. Now I'm going to move on to my back panel. This is the way I kind of did mine to kind of help me understand what I was looking at here. So my back is going to be this floral print. I chose to do this differently. Now in the pattern, you would just have another piece of this exterior, but I wanted just to add another pop of color, I should say, or contrast. And so this is my panel C. This is my back pocket piece. I also have a lining for this pocket. So the way my back is going to look is I'm going to have this piece, my panel C. I'm going to have my 2 side panels. Sorry if this is getting out of frame. It's hard to keep everything in frame and in focus, so I apologize for that. And then you're going to have your top panels. You're going to cut out 4 of these. All of them will get a woven interfacing, but only 2 will get a Decaville light. They're going to go on the top there. I actually, when I print out my panel pieces, I would write on there like, oh, I want my back pocket panel to be cut out of my floral. I want my pocket panel C to be cut out of this crimson contrast. I actually wrote on my pattern paper pieces before I cut anything out to kind of get it worked out in my head. So this is your back. Let me set that aside and we will look at our front. And I highly suggest that all your lining pieces be cut out of the same material, and that'll just make it easier if it matches everything so you don't have as much stress there. Because like this specific in your front, you have a lot of lining pieces, and so it's just easier if they're all the same so that you don't have to worry about that part. So this is all my lining pieces for my front. But the main thing I want to show you is that you can see the pocket panel A is going to be the bottom of your bag. Then you're going to have your pocket panel B next. This could be cut just out of your main fabric. I just chose that I wanted to do a little pop of contrast right there. Then you have your pocket panel C on the top. This is how your front will look. Of course, there's going to be zippers in between. Then you're going to have your side panels again. I'm not having these orientated properly, sorry. And then your top panels again. Laying it out this way kind of helped my mind to understand what colors and what materials I wanted to use when I was trying to figure out how I wanted my bag to look at the end. This is the way I did it. You do not have to do it this way, but I just wanted to show you how I did it to help me decide on what materials I wanted to use in my bag. That's the trickiest parts. Let me show you the other pieces and then we will be done and you can get started. We also have to have our zipper panels from the top. Where this bag does have that recessed zipper, we'll be looking down at this. So I wanted my 2 zipper panels to kind of match my exterior contrast. So I chose this fabric, then of course I just did a lining. I went ahead and cut out one of my straps. I interfaced this and went ahead and folded it, but it's just your basic 4-inch wide strap and you do your double fold bias tape on there. So I went ahead and did that. I will probably sew this off camera because there's no need to make you watch me sewing this part. For my straps, I did them just a little bit differently. I decided to do a what do they call this, a double strap? I don't know, but you can still follow the patterns and do, if you follow the patterns, you'll just have the one color like this. If you don't know how to do this and want me to help, I can help you with that, but I just wanted mine to be a little bit different. Okay, you'll cut 2 of those out. And then we have a couple other pieces here, and I went ahead and folded mine just to help myself, but you will cut out 2 strap connectors and you're going to put D-rings on these. We're going to cut out 4 connectors for your strap and we're going to put rectangle rings on these. Then you're also going to cut out your zipper tab for your main recess zipper. You're going to cut that piece out too. It's in the pattern instructions and it's just I think it's just a square. I can't remember exact measurements, but you'll cut that out and fold it. I can definitely help show you how to do that once we get to that step. I just went ahead and folded mine just so I was prepared and a little bit more organized. All of these get interfacing too. So this is how we're going to cut and interface our bag. If I went through this too quickly, if there was something you didn't understand, just ask me below and I will take more time to explain everything. I know the cutting and the interfacing part can be a little overwhelming. This will probably be the part you'll spend the most time on in this sew along, doing these steps. So don't get overwhelmed and like, oh, I'm not going to do the bag. Just stick with it. You have a week to cut and interface everything, and feel free to ask any questions or let me know if you have any concerns. But I can't wait to see your fabrics and materials you choose. Please post a picture down below this link of your completed cut and interfaced materials, and next week we will get started sewing, and I'm so excited that you're joining me for this, and I can't wait to see what you make. Thank you.